Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. This is the show, as you know, helping you to be that lawyer, someone who's confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Which of those is most important to you, Michele? Confidence, organization, or being a skilled rainmaker? Out of curiosity.
I think they're all important.
It's totally putting you on the spot right now.
I think they're all important.
All right, you're not going to pick one. That's why there's three together is my Be That Lawyer, post tagline or whatever, because they're all important. And that's right. What I'm offering as a coach and as a trainer and as a mentor to lawyers are those three things. So if they're all necessary, then everybody needs me. All right, just saying. Anyway, welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm happy that the audience is here listening. And twice a week, every week, we're bringing you great content, great guests to pick their brains and identify how we can just continue to get incremental improvement. And that leads into, Michele, our quote of the show, which is very straightforward. Rome wasn't built in a day. Is that something you find yourself saying all the time?
Very often. In all aspects of my life, not just legal work.
Yeah. Well, I try to say that with my teenager when he's acting up. I go, well, I guess this is a process. This is going to take some time. I hear he's going to take till he's 30 to come back and say I was right about everything.
Probably.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I don't really want to wait that long. I'd rather it happen sooner, but oh well. So
I know you're right, Steve. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, I mean, if lawyers are telling me I'm right and everyone else is telling me I'm right, and my teenager's the only one who isn't, maybe it's his issue, not mine. How about
Absolutely.
that? All right.
Absolutely.
Very good. Very good. So talk about Rome wasn't built in a day. I mean, we all have heard that, but what is it kind of the special meaning to you and why you find yourself saying it all the time? And welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. This is really, really exciting. This is my first podcast. So,
okay.
Hopefully I do okay.
It's only downhill from here, Michele.
But I'm particularly excited because this is a topic that's obviously really close to my heart and what I do day in and day out. And I think it's great that other lawyers have the opportunity to listen to you and to gain knowledge because really Rome wasn't built in a day, and gaining that knowledge along the way is critical to evolution. And I think that, businesses and us as individual professionals, we start at one spot and we move along a trajectory, and that's an evolution. And, sometimes that's a personal evolution. Sometimes that's a professional evolution. Sometimes they run together concurrently, but things just take time. And I think that patience and time is something that a lot of us don't have bandwidth for. And we want instant gratification. You start this project, you start this case, you start a business, boom, it's supposed to all come together and happen. And I think recognizing that it does take time and you have to plant those seeds. And sometimes some of them grow and others don't. Sometimes they grow, they die, and you replant. Yeah. I mean, it is a process. And that can hold you back if you don't look at it like that.
I think people forget just like you, I'm an entrepreneur, right? And, if I had to list all the mistakes I've made in bad hires, if I had to list the mistakes I made in bad marketing decisions and hiring, terrible marketing people, not unlike who I'm working with now, who's one of our sponsors, Green Cardigan Marketing, shout out to them. But, we all make these mistakes. And I think a big part of it, Michele, is what have we learned? How can we not repeat those mistakes and continue to improve and get better? And is that really at the core of what makes a successful law practice or makes a successful entrepreneur?
I think it is, right? I think that anyone who thinks they're not going to make mistakes is delusional. But what I also find delusional is not learning from those mistakes. And I certainly have been victim to my own mistakes at times, right? Like sometimes you have to realize that you're making them. And that is a process as well. And hopefully after you've made them a few times, it sort of crystallizes and you get it and you say, I can't make that mistake again. Sometimes you learn it immediately, right? It just depends on what it is. But what I have found is that those mistakes, the hiring mistakes, the marketing mistakes, the, you know, whatever else you invest in that maybe doesn't return the way you think, you really do grow from those. And then the next time you go to hire a marketing agency, you're way more knowledgeable, way more aware of what you need, what you should expect. The hiring is the same thing. You can, it almost like jumps out at you from the page. You will see things that you didn't previously see. You will spot those traits where your internal flag goes up and you say, oh no, we're out here, we're done here. Whereas before you say, oh, maybe I'll give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's not a big deal. Maybe you could train somebody. Maybe I should overlook the fact that this person's been unemployed for 2 years. Maybe they just had a bad run. But then you quickly realize, it's like my analogy. I don't know if you ever watched the show Frasier.
Yeah, back in the day. Is that not the new one?
So Frasier is still on. And believe it or not, all these years later, it's extremely relevant and it's hilarious, right? And it's just so smart and well done. And there's an episode of Frasier where he starts dating his colleague, and he hated her initially, and then she grew on him, and he brought her to introduce to the rest of the family, and she was awful, right, and terrible, and that, like, it's one of my favorite lines, because it's like, I think this sometimes in business, and it's like I hear Frasier going, "I've made a terrible mistake," like about this woman that he's now dating, and sometimes the growth happens when you make the mistake and it hurts, and you have to find your way out of the mistake. And generally, when you find your path forward from that, you're a lot better off. But there is that feeling of like ick, or like,
yeah, the S word or the F word, if we will.
Right. But I think we've all been there. So you have to kind of, everyone's made mistakes, like Jeff Bezos made mistakes. Steve Jobs made mistakes, you don't really hear about them.
I mean, the hope, Michele, is that A, you don't make the same mistake twice. And then the other is that the mistakes you make are small. If it's a bet the firm, bet the business mistake, maybe those are ones sometimes you can't recover from. But I think most lawyers and most practices, it is a hiring mistake that you can move on from. It is, a poor vendor mistake. It is, you don't understand the numbers. And so you make mistakes because you're not understanding, key KPIs, key performance indicators, or anything that you realize later on, would have saved you some pain. Right. But that's growth. That's an experience. That's like what life is all about, is those mistakes that define us. Like, we have to have them. We can't, like we say with our kids, like, we have to let them fail. We have to let them fall. We can't, bubble wrap them, because what's that going to teach them about life? So I think there's a lot, we could probably have a whole conversation about, kids and mistakes too, but moving along, let's get a little bit of a flavor for your background though, Michele, because I think that leads into some of the things we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Okay. So I am a graduate of Brooklyn Law School in Brooklyn Heights, New York. And I started my career at Paul Hastings, Janofsky and Walker, which was a large international law firm. And I spent a few years there in the early 2000s, when the legal profession was very different from what it is today. And learned a lot, worked an awful lot, and did that grind for several years, and went and worked at another national law firm called Carter, Ledyard and Milburn, which is also in New York City. It was a bit smaller. Worked there for a few years. Also, I was in the litigation department in both of these locations. And then I transitioned to a New Jersey firm shortly after I got married, and I was able to take on different types of work there because it was a smaller practice. So aside from litigation, I learned a bit about transactional work and real estate work because we'd been doing local development work. And so I started to network and join business groups and see if I could bring in business. And the owners of the firm were willing to pay me a percentage of whatever I brought in. And so that's really how I got started in client development. I went to these breakfast meetings at 7 o'clock once a week, every week. And it was called BNI, and I did a lot of that. I did a lot of local bar types of meetings and things of that nature. And I started to build a very small book that the owners of the firm didn't very care much for, because it was, peanuts in their world, but they let me run with it. And I realized that, I could do that, right? I could meet people and sell the services of the firm and sell myself. And I started to do that more and more. And then there was a huge financial mortgage crisis in 2009. And I also happened to be very pregnant at that time. And so I decided to take a leap of faith and take the clients that I had and start my own practice. And, that was really my first baby. And that baby was born shortly before my daughter, who is now 15. And we've just organically grown over the years. When I started, I was 7 months pregnant, working out of my basement. Then I moved into a small office that I sublet from a local business owner. From there, I moved into my own office that I shared with another attorney, and then he left, and then I took that over, and then I moved into a larger office as I grew and hired attorneys and paralegals and staff. And so that's really been an evolution.
Yeah.
Wasn't
But
built in a
that's
day.
but so gutsy. I mean, just to put it out there, it. But I mean, 7 months pregnant, starting your own firm, and just taking that, rolling those dice and taking that chance, and then sticking with it all these years.
Thank you.
And this is going back to, what have we learned, right? So, I mean, how did you, whether we're going back a few years or more recently, figure out the balance? Because that's the biggest challenge of, you've got the firm to run, you've got the business to build, the rainmaking, and then you have this whole life at home with the kiddos, if you will, to, be a great mom, a great, wife, whatever it is, like, to your family, to have that family too.
Well, I think that's a great question. I mean, and I think it's very hard to balance, and I wouldn't tell anybody that it's easy, because it's not. And at times it has been a struggle for me, just very candidly. And I think being candid about those types of things is really important, because we, as women, idealize, a certain image or standard that we have to maintain, or that we should maintain. And like, there's a lot of chaos in that, right? Like, sometimes it looks a lot more glamorous than it is, but I don't know that I'm the best at balancing. I do my best, but sometimes I go home and I work on my computer, and mornings and the weekends I get up and I'm on my computer, and, I try to make the time that I need to. I think certainly having support in the office is pivotal, and in allowing me to do that. And I think, that ebbs and flows. When you have the right people and you have support, you're better able to make that balance. When you don't have the right people, then you're taking on the hiring, the business, the admin, the legal. You're doing a lot of things, like, you're wearing a lot of hats. And that, I think, is unfortunately sometimes what happens as a firm owner, whether you're a male or a female, because in the end, you're responsible. So, maybe your billings that week are a little bit down because you've been dealing with admin that somebody else can do. So,
I mean, and I'm running these managing partner rainmaker roundtables. I think I may have mentioned it at some point, but this is a topic that comes up all the time. And so I know we've got, AI, I know we've got legal tech, I know we've got administrators and assistants. And what we're trying to figure out every day, and it's an ongoing play, is, how much can we delegate? How much can we offload to technology? How many hats can we take off? Right. So, like, I interviewed a guy about a month ago. He's Tom Dunlap. He's actually, And all he does is rainmaking and be the face of the firm. That didn't happen overnight, right? Either,
Right.
just like Rome. But like it was something that he needed to do, and eventually, brought in a CEO, brought in a CFO, brought in all these things so that he can just wear one or two hats. And I'm not saying that a small firm that's possible, but the goal is like how many good people and how many good technologies and how many things can you put in your corner that are going to support your ability to be like let off on and have more time, more free time than you do now. That's really the goal.
That's an admirable position for him to be in, and I'd love to talk to him and hear more about.
Well, you can listen to the podcast after we're done today. It's literally launched today, and we're going to be on we're the following month. But yeah, Tom Dunlap, check that out. I mean, it took him actually. He had to go into the military and become have a military brain. I think really was a critical part of how he became who he became and how he did it. We all don't want to do that to go into the military to figure it out.
Right. I don't know that the military wants me at this point, but
right. Me either. But the point is that I think we can listen to his podcast episode, and my job in that episode was to pull out the nuggets of how to scale and how to do it in a way where you don't want to, pull your hair out every day.
Listen, I think a lot of that is implementing, processes and, format, and really like building a machine that just runs, right? Yeah. An intake gets done a certain way. The retainers are done a certain way. Like everything that you can put into place to make efficiency happen, and your billing, really the primary crux of what goes on outside of rainmaking and bringing things in, which is how we make our money. But really processes are critical to that, right? Like what softwares are we using? Do we use AI? Can we use AI? I mean, that's a really novel topic because it's changing the landscape of everything. And, LexisNexis has some really interesting AI features, right? Like if you want to write a letter demand, like from a landlord to a tenant, they have a feature that will allow you to do that. Now, is that something that you want to do? Is that something you're comfortable doing? Will clients pay for that? Do they need you if that feature is available is another question, right? Do we want to become secondary to AI technology? I hope not. So I think you have to be careful with how you're using that. But I can tell you for certain, like I do use AI technology sometimes to help me with marketing ideas, or, how do I want to say this? What's a better way to say this? I mean, it does work.
Yeah. You throw it into ChatGPT as an example and say, hey, like I do this sometimes for like, I'm doing an event and I have a title and a summary, and I think it's pretty good. All right. I've been doing this a long time, but I throw it into ChatGPT and I just say, this is a presentation I'm doing. Can you make the language better, more, call to action, blah, blah, blah. And then sure enough, it pumps out. I go, dang, that is better than mine.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm happy and I'm sad. I'm sad I couldn't come up with it myself, but I'm happy that it's better.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's kind of the new world. So,
yeah. But let me ask you, Michele, what are a couple of you mentioned LexisNexis. I mean, what are a couple like business management tools that have made you more efficient to try to get to that best balance you could try to have?
Sure. So obviously Lexis is, Lexis, Westlaw, whatever the firms use. But, there's a lot of features that Lexis has in addition to just legal research. I mean, there's table of authority and table of content features that we use through Lexis, right? So when we're writing briefs, we don't have to kind of manually go through the Microsoft program and do it. We use Clio as the billing software, and that has a tremendous amount of supporting resources. So you can prepare retainer agreements through Clio. You can send those out through Clio, and then you can facilitate payments through Clio with that. And then Clio's tracking those payments. And then you're sort of using that as a secondary source to, balance retainer accounts, right? And have it all organized in one spot, and it's electronic and it's maneuverable. And so that's really good. I mean, it allows you to track your time well. You can upload documents. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can use that software. So more and more we're trying to do that. And then certain other technologies that are basic, but like Calendly, or ways to connect with people, like, just so you don't have to get up and walk to the other office and say, hey, are you able to do this at 1 o'clock, or make a phone call? And, those are the types of technologies that I do think enables kind of the day-to-day to run more smoothly. But I think in terms of, rainmaking and freeing yourself up for business development, you need talent around you. You need the right team. You need to find that talent and keep that talent, right? So,
well, but let's stop there though, because I don't want to pass by an opportunity to share a valuable lesson. So what's your take and what you've learned in all these years on what you're looking for in talent, and how you get as much out of that talent as possible and retain that talent? I mean, those three, finding, keeping, and finding, leveraging, and keeping. What are just a couple thoughts on that? Just so again, someone listening that maybe is looking for their first associate and doesn't want to make the same mistakes that you've made or that others have made.
Sure.
I'd love for you to share that.
Well, one of the things that I've been doing recently is really focusing on, like, what are my core values for this business, right? So what is important to me as an individual, as a business owner, as a lawyer, right? And, I care about output, right? I care about our polished product. I care about, providing value, right? We want to make people feel good about what we're doing when they get that bill, so that they can pay us, but we want to have done our job well. And so I think focusing on, maybe you call it a core value, maybe you call it a mission statement, really what defines your organization, right? Because I think from there, and this is a recent thing, Steve, that I've done. I wasn't really doing this before, but I think because I'm doing it recently, it allows me to really ask different types of questions when I'm interviewing people. And you can really sense whether that person is going to subscribe to your mission, your values, and work within your organization in a way that is meaningful and that is going to be, one, successful, and two, long-term, right? You're interviewing, and you kind of, sometimes you hear things, right? And you think, oh, maybe that's weird, but like, I'm just going to overlook that. But when you really get down to the nitty gritty and you ask people questions about things, you hear them talk, right? And sometimes just hearing them talk, or talk about other employers or other experiences, that's like, that opens the floodgates. And the minute they start that, you can really see, this person will not be aligned with my values. And I think that's not something that I used to do. And I did make a lot of mistakes because I thought, oh, well, And so now I'm able to really ask the kinds of questions like, what is important to you? Or how would you handle a certain situation? And I really I ask different questions now. What would you do in this situation? What do you do when you make a mistake? How do you rectify it? Like, maybe a little bit more colloquial in that regard. And tell me about your worst experience. Tell me about your best experience. And then the way that they're able to describe that, when someone's really throwing a prior boss under the bus, and like, just, even if it's unsolicited, I mean, that's a red flag now for me. Like, I don't want you,
people that talk negatively about other people, and they're telling you as a sort of a stranger, they're talking trash about everybody all the time. Like, correct. That's just, you just know that. I had a guy I met with, who's, guy I network with, and just destroyed everyone in my network, like one by one. This person's a taker. This person's a jerk. This person's and I was like, I think that the problem might be you. Like, I didn't say that to him because it wouldn't have mattered if I said it to him anyway. But that in my mind, as someone who has a lot of experience networking and whatever, like, he was the problem, Of
course. Right.
But I think if I had to add one thing to this interviewing process that I really like to do, and I've done this a number of times with great success, is giving them a project like seeing
Yeah.
how their work product is, giving them something
Yeah,
to
great
do
idea.
that brings in a lot of the skills that you're looking for. That's not going to help you with the cultural fit. That's not going to help you with the personality fit, some of those things. But from a standpoint of like, I gave them an assignment. How did it come back? And if it comes back with grammatical errors, it comes back with
Yeah,
whatever, like, this is someone who doesn't treat the work the way you do. And
right.
that's not maybe.
That's a terrific idea. We do that a little bit. But I agree, if something has grammatical mistakes during like an interview process, like
Yeah.
that's a precursor to what you're going to see.
Yeah. Give me a break. And then what
Yeah.
about you're all right. So you hired the right person. They're doing great work. They're adding value to the team. What are a couple things that you do to keep that person happy, to keep them sort of committed to the firm, committed to your vision and to working with you long term?
Well, for starters, I always thank people because I think people want to be thanked. And I think people want to be praised when something is good. I mean, just because you're a seasoned attorney doesn't mean that like you don't need to hear good job. That's important to me. When somebody produces something that's good, that's effective, that's winning, that's clever, that's outside the box, I like to, it's important.
Yeah.
And then we have other incentive programs that we do here with bonus and things of that nature, exceeding certain hours. That's one thing. But I think that like really to people, to keep people invested and involved and committed to like the vision and the growth, it's really just making them a part of things, right? Like I welcome and want to hear people's ideas, right? Because my ideas are just mine. And I like to tell people, you can't move that ball down the field without the rest of the players. So, I might be Tom Brady, but if I don't have the right, like people on the receiving end, it doesn't matter. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not Tom Brady, but, I use that analogy a lot, and I want to hear ideas. Like, and I'm interested in their ideas.
Yeah.
How can we make this better as a collective, right? Like, it's not a dictatorship, right? It's. Have you seen something that I haven't seen? Maybe you're a different generation than I am. Maybe you had a friend who told you about something, or there's a software that you used to use. Be interested in what your employees can contribute beyond just work product. Make them a part of the movement and the vision, because they're the ones that can really open your eyes up, right? Because we see things so tunnel vision when it's just our own ideas.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And anything you can do that where they feel like they're part of the team, they feel like they're part of the culture, they're making a difference. That matters to a lot of people. And the one thing that, and I mean, I'm very fortunate as the recipient of, facilitating these roundtable groups I keep bringing up, is something came up yesterday where it was, do you know what your employees' goals are? Now, when I say goals, people immediately start thinking of business development. That's not what I'm talking about. And not what they were talking about. It's really like, what's their life goal? Like, what are they? I want to have a second home. I want to travel in Europe. I want to sock away from my kids 529. Like, what is that employee trying to accomplish and what motivates them and how can you help them to that end? And that I think is some of the managing partners in my group were, I don't want to say scratching their head, but they were like, damn, I haven't done that. And I think
that's a great question too. I'm going to use that, Steve.
Yeah. We're helping everybody today, Michele.
Yeah.
We're working as a team. We're offering up ideas, and I wish I could take credit for all these like they're my own, but I'm again in a wonderful position where I get to learn as well as teach every day. Let's flip it a little bit and let's talk a little bit about your game-changing book, which is Shoe Dog, which now that's different than the Air movie, right? About the creation of the Air Jordan story or those Jordans. This is
Correct.
This is the Nike story.
Correct. This is a book written by Phil Knight.
Okay.
Who, founded Nike. And, I've read a lot of business books over the years, and I listen to different podcasts or watch different films and listen, I think we kind of talked about this in the beginning. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day, but learning is a huge thing. You can't stop learning, right?
Yeah.
You have to continually be learning to push yourself, to move forward, to think of new directions. So that's become a much bigger thing as I've matured. But Shoe Dog is such a fantastic book because it shows you, I mean, it talks about Nike and its origins and how Phil Knight started and, you know, his background in Oregon and like running the streets and where his love of running developed. And really that's where Nike, you know, was born. It was born out of that. But it's his story and it's his trials and tribulations. And you look at Nike and you're just like, they're Nike, right? It's,
They did some things right. That's for sure.
They did some things right.
Yeah.
But Nike today is not what Nike was when it started. And they did a lot of things that, you know, were risk taking. They did some things that, you know, almost cost them Nike. And, you know, there were personnel things in the book that he's sharing. But more than that, I think it's just like reading wisdom, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, it sounds like a hell of a book.
And it resonates with you because there's a really great quote in there that you know, he talks about, like, he was visiting somebody in Asia and somebody made a metaphor about, like, you see those trees, like next year when you come back, they'll be even higher. And it's sort of like, right, it takes time and patience and seeds along the way, right? But it's a fabulous book, and he's incredible, Phil Knight, and he's done so much philanthropy and given back. But
yeah, I feel like we just came full circle from the Rome isn't built in a day and planting seeds. It's like, you know, we just figured out in 30 minutes how to do a full roundabout on it. So check out Shoe Dog, everybody, and Michele, thanks so much. Before we wrap up, I want to thank our wonderful sponsors, of course, Lawmatics, which is a great automation tool for law firms from a marketing, a client development, staying in touch with people, contracts. Of course, Get Staffed Up. So we're talking about delegating as a key element to balance. Well, Get Staffed Up. That's where I got my guy, Chris, who's doing great work for me and all my marketing. And of course, Green Cardigan Marketing. You could check out our updated website, fretzin.com. And Michele, if people want to get in touch with you and they want to network with you, they want to learn more about you, what are the best ways for them to find you?
Well, they can find us online at mrossllc.com. We also have a Instagram called Litigation Lane, which is me kind of just talking about different topics in the state of New York and New Jersey that might be interesting to business owners. Or you can give us a call at 201-568-2064, but we're on the web.
You're fine.
And we have a new website coming soon, so stay tuned.
All right. That's it. Well, listen, thank you for being my guest and sharing your wisdom. I've got my, you know, usual page of notes of key takeaways from things that you've shared and, you know, just inspiring to a lot of lawyers who want to scale. They want to bring in other people and stop being the only person in the room, and that it isn't easy, but it is something that is very doable. And you just have to kind of keep making mistakes and learning and improving. And that's how life happens. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But listen to other people's mistakes because they might get there faster than I did.
Well, and we talk quite a bit on this show about not only, you know, solutions, but about mistakes and trying to, you know, pick up every little gem you can pick up along the way. But thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Yeah, my pleasure. And hey, thank you everybody for spending some time with Michele and I today on the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. Seriously, this is, you know, not a big deal to be in your car, walk your dog, doing laundry, doing work, and having us in the background to get a couple of takeaways from every episode. It's not a surprise or an unusual situation. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do is help pull out the gems that are going to help you be that lawyer, someone who's confident, organized, and a skilled rainmaker. Michele, final words.
Steve, I wish you were around 15 years ago.
I was around 15 years ago. We just didn't know each other then.
Keep doing it. I think it's fantastic. I think learning and evolving and recognizing that you need to be patient, take every gem, like you said, and just, you know, keep going.
Keep at it.
Even when there are setbacks, just keep going.
Well, that's what the Be That Lawyer credo is all about. And so with that, we're going to wrap up. Thanks so much. And thank you, everybody. Take care. Be safe. Be well. We will talk again soon.